Hi golfers, Nick here from Untitled Golf. It's Friday, so welcome to another lesson on golf tips. This week in golf tips, we're going to talk about the hip movement in the golf swing. This is a key move to help you hit the ball further, straighter, better contact and draw the golf ball. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a drill that I use, some mistakes that amateur golfers make. We're going to take a look at the swing from two different viewpoints, from the face-on camera. We're also going to take a look at the camera from behind just to show you guys how I move the hips. I'm also going to share with you a really good drill. You're probably wondering why I'm sitting down in the intro to this video. Well, in today's video, we're using this chair to help you golfers out there play better golf. First up, golfers, we're going to take a look at some of the biggest issues I see with the hip movement. We're going to talk about how we have to set up and how we have to move the hips in the golf swing like the best players in the world. So one of the biggest mistakes I see with the hip movement, first of all, at setup, the golfer hasn't set their weight far enough to the left at setup. So that particular golfer may be leaning back slightly, they may have a bit more weight on their right foot, and as they swing back, and kind of their idea to make a golf swing is to kind of shift their weight to the right and then move it back to the left. Now, the problem with that is that first of all, it affects the swing path. The more you have your weight back, the more you shift your weight back, the harder it is to keep this club on the correct plane, and the tendency would be to swing out to in. The best players, as they set up and then impact, they would have moved forward with their lower body from that position at setup to impact. So if that golfer's started to move their weight too much to the right, it's really hard then to get the weight back, not only back to where it started, but also more forward. So the particular golfers that kind of have the weight back at setup, they kind of shift in the backswing, and then they kind of turn through. Sometimes they can get that to work. Now, I caught that ball a little bit thin. So taking a look at the club data there, you'll see that my speed was okay. I hit that 2.5 degrees upwards, and I caught the ball really low on the face. Also, my swing path, it's a lot harder to swing into out when you shift the weight and keep the weight back. So my path there was almost 2 degrees from out to in. So I still managed to create a decent amount of speed there, like 86 miles an hour. But the problem is on the downslope, in the rough, I'm going to struggle to make good contact, so I'm not compressing the ball, not hitting down on the golf ball. So like I said, the golfers that set their weight back at setup, shift it in the backswing, they don't usually get it forward enough at impact, and that tends to lead to a path that moves outside to in. If I shift my weight here, it's harder to swing the arms around my body. If I keep my weight to the left, I can easily swing it round. So if I start to shift my weight too much and then I don't get my weight forward enough, our path will start to move outside across the golf ball. So let's look at what the difference would be if I kind of set my hips more forward at setup and then kept them forward and moved them further forward in the finish. Like I said, if I have more weight to the left and don't shift in the backswing, it's easier to move my weight more forward as I hit the golf ball. So this would be kind of my more standard golf swing, and like I said, we're going to be looking at comparisons from both viewpoints just to see what the difference is here. So as I set up, I'm already pushing my weight slightly forward to the left hand side. If you look at this belt loop here from this camera behind me, as I swing back, you'll see how that loop actually moves slightly towards the target, but actually from the front view I'm staying very centered. So my hips are tilting, they're turning, but they're not shifting. Okay, so that belt loop turns as I rotate here, I'm turning that slightly more forward as I go back. Then as I start to open up my turn, that belt loop actually starts to move back, but I'm still keeping my weight moving forward. So that's a good kind of checkpoint to look at when you look at the hip. Let's take a look at my standard swing now. So as I set up here, I've got my weight slightly favoring the left side. That's going to help me move the hands more inwards as I go back. I'm also going to keep my weight to the left, forward, and then move it progressively forward into the finish. It's going to help me hit down the ball. It's going to help me swing into out and with more speed. So let's give this a go. Kind of standard swing here. So more solid hit. You can see the shot on the screen there. Pretty straight. Generally kind of push draw with the stack and tilt system. Pitches around 160 with a 7-iron here, 2.7 degrees into out. 6 degrees downwards, and you can see that contact there right out the middle. You saw that first one, I caught that a little bit thin. Speed there was up to 92 miles an hour. So I think you guys might be a little bit surprised actually keeping the weight forward without shifting. You can actually create quite a fair bit of speed. I think a lot of people think that you get the speed by shifting. Now, certainly take a look at some long drivers, they will really move around and overswing just to get as much power as possible. But in the stack and tilt system and playing good golf, we need to not only create speed, but we also need to control the contact. Much easier to control the contact if you're not shifting around. So staying very centered helps me turn, it helps me create depth in my swing, helps me move the hands more inwards here as I go back, and then helps me kind of compress the golf ball, get my weight forward, impact my hands forward, which is key to consistent golf shots. So now let's talk about the drill that we're going to use today to help you golfers kind of get a better feel for this in the golf swing. So if you sit down on the chair, just take your setup. You're just going to have to raise the handle a little bit just so you gives yourself space. Oh, by the way, I'm only joking, that's not how we're going to do this drill. Now with the chair here, we're going to use this kind of, just going to place it on the outside of my left hip here as I set up. So I'm just going to leave maybe hands width gap here between my left foot and the chair. So the idea is, as I set up here, let's do a few practice swings first. Like I said, it's something you can practice without hitting golf balls at home. So you've got about hands width, so it's probably 4 inches from my left hip here. So the idea would be to try and maintain that distance between the chair as you make a backswing. However, as I start down, I'm going to try and move into that chair as quickly as possible. I'm going to try and move into the chair before I hit the golf ball. It's probably unrealistic, but I'm going to try and bump that chair as I come through the golf ball. And then if I move far enough, fast enough, I will knock it over, but that requires a big shift forward. So this will help you kind of get a good feel for this. And like I said, first thing you want to do is a few practice swings. So let me set up here. So as I set up here, I've got my weight slightly left here. I'm going to try and maintain that gap from my left hip. As I come down, I'm going to try and bump into that chair. I did that enough so it knocks over the chair. So you can see that I felt like I hit that literally as I hit the ground there, as I came through. So that would have helped me kind of swing with power. It would have helped me swing into out and hit the golf ball first. So if you can practice that home, that kind of gives you the right feel in the golf. So I think it's kind of good to have some key checkpoints, kind of some key reference points, right? Even if you just make a backswing, you're trying to maintain that distance. We're not trying to shift away then into it. Just trying to maintain that distance and then push forward into the follow through. So let's give this a go with the ball. So I'd always suggest doing practice swings first, really just to try and get that feel. So I've got the edge of the chair, about 4 inches from my left hip here. I'm going to try and hit that as soon as I can in the downswing, try and maintain that distance going back here and then move forward into the finish. So let's give this a go. Okay, didn't quite knock it over, but definitely move more forward there. I hit that very similar distance to that first shot I did. So very similar kind of swing, very similar kind of distance. Caught that slightly out the heel, I swung into out, hit down on the golf ball. I actually got more speed on that. I think actually moving, I'm not just turning my hips, I'm also driving them forward. Actually got 95 miles an hour speed there out of that 7-iron. So although the contact wasn't perfect, definitely helped me kind of get the feeling that I needed for my hips. So like I said, guys, that's a really good drill to help you kind of get awareness for your hip movement in the backswing and kind of into the downswing. Very simple drill, guys. It's something you can practice at home, just trying to get the feeling. You don't even have to use a golf club to get the feeling for this. It's important that you set the weight slightly forward at setup, keep it there in the backswing, and progressively move it forward into the finish. The other thing about having a chair, you can take a seat, take a break, have a cup of tea. So thanks again for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you again next week for another video.